Solo Just Basketball here today, recording this on February 20th. Just a lot of things happening in the league. Victor Wembanyama out for the year, what that says about the Spurs season, dreadful All-Star weekend, and much more. Little bounce around solo edition of the Just Basketball show. I'm Chris Manning. Let's freaking go. What is up, everyone? I'm Chris Manning. This is the Just Basketball Show here solo. Wes out of the country. Some guest booking difficulties the last couple days. Everyone's taking some deserved time off, but we'll have some guests next week. Wes will be back next week as well. We're going to keep going. And this is a format I think we're going to continue to do. So during the week, if you're a regular listener or if you're new, you may and you want to tune in, there are sometimes topics we don't get to. Nuances in the league, little things here and there. For instance, tomorrow, after Cavs-Knicks, I'm going in person. I'm going to have a recap up of that game, some news and notes from that game. Both teams, second night of a back-to-back. Both teams incidentally coming back from New York because the Cavs are starting in Brooklyn on Thursday. So we'll do that. We'll have that game. I'm going to talk about it on this channel, in this podcast feed, right after the game. Give you 20 or so minutes on said game. And then we'll have our normal episodes. But here and there, the rest of the year, as WNBA, as NBA, as draft, as whatever comes up that needs just a little extra, a little love, a little attention, I'm going to give it to you here on the Just Basketball Show on our YouTube, but everywhere. But most importantly, here on YouTube. Topic number one today is Victor Wembanyama out for the year. The All-Star game doesn't deserve the number one slot. We'll get to that. But Wembanyama is out for the year with basically a blood clot, what appears to be a blood clot in his shoulder. The Spurs, per their statement and per the reporting we've seen, expect him to be back fully healthy next season. It's obviously very scary. Blood clots are scary. Chris Bosh's career, was derailed by blood clots. These are not things that can be taken lightly. He's going to be on blood thinning medication and thus can't play. So, hard to speculate. It's not fair to speculate on what this means for Wembanyama, anything beyond just you hope he gets better. I think it, though, has two tangible impacts. Basketball-wise, this slows down the Spurs. This takes the Spurs from a team you're looking at in the standings, you're looking at their odds on BetMGM, you're looking around at them and thinking, could they make a run as if the Suns crater and go for the 10 seed? Is that an opportunity for them? As the All-Star break comes back, they are 3.5 back of 10th place, and now they don't have Wemby. So they're already 3.5 back, of the play-in. Don't have their best player. Don't have the most dominant defensive player in the league this year. Don't have that 7-foot alien who's launching threes and is just ascending. If you take that out, that is done. Even if you have De'Aaron Fox, you have the Rookie of the Year favorite in Castle, you have a point guard, you have a bunch of competent guys elsewhere. Your playing hopes, your playoff hopes are now done. The season is done. All of the focus now shifts to two things. It is to next year, obviously, when they'll have, you would presume a full year of Fox, year 2 of Castle, Wemby back healthy. You hit the ground running with those three and whatever else you can add in the summer. And they would absolutely be a team I would look at for the summer to go out and make some kind of aggressive move. They also are a team that, in the short term, in terms of the draft, are a team to watch. Now, they can't exactly bottom out. This is not a team that you can look at and say they're going to be able to bottom out fully and chase the worst record in the league. As again, we're recording this, they are 15 games back of the worst team in the league. They are over 10 games back, the two worst teams in our conference, that being the Pelicans and that being the Jazz. They are a 9.5 back of the fourth-placed Hornets. They are not going to chase how bad any of these teams are. But could they pass Portland and move into 9? Could they move past the A-seeded Bulls? Could they move past the Nets at 7 or Philly at 6? Could they get their odds better enough where they have a better chance at getting lucky here, getting another top 2, top 3, maybe the number 1 pick, or at least getting a higher pick and get themselves in the range to be an interesting draft team, not just from a draft standpoint, and does that put them in range, for a Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey if they get really lucky? I mean, imagine if they got one, I got Cooper Flag to pair with Wemby and Fox and Castle, like that would obviously be the dream. But even, is it a Kneppel from Duke? Is it a Trey Johnson from Texas? An Asia Newell from Georgia? Like any of these wingy guys that maybe are a little bit higher, or even just if they want to use this as a trade asset, does this give them more room to move up in the draft just a little bit, get a little bit of better asset in terms of getting a rookie they like, or trading that pick for something more immediate? I think this makes them a fascinating team, and a team that would have a reason to chase this, because you would think that this is the last chance they would have to do this. You have Fox now, Castle's only going to get better, and you have frickin' Victor Wembanyama. You're on the ascendancy here. This is probably the last chance you were going to have a really high pick, you would think. So we'll see where that goes, at least of your own picks. There's also the Defensive Player of the Year race to think about here, which is now, per the betting markets, become a two-person race. This was a Victor Wembanyama race. He was above plus 2,000, or minus 2,000, in the odds, as high as like minus 2,800, I believe, in some places. This was his award. He was going to win this award. Now this is an Evan Mobley, Jaren Jackson Jr. race. Mobley, as of the last time you look at BetMGM or FanDuel or any of these other betting apps, wherever you do sports betting, he is the slight favorite. Both minus money, so it's evenly close. It's going to be a close race down the stretch. It is actually a race we've seen before. When Jaren Jackson Jr. won this 2 years ago, Mobley finished third. I thought Mobley, frankly, should have won it. That was my pick of the year. A little bit biased, seeing him in person in Cleveland, all that stuff. But this is going to be an amazing, robust race. Jaren Jackson Jr. has been just a monster on the defensive end this year. He is going to have a case for just being versatile, being the best, most important player on the Grizzlies this year, being just an absolute stud on that end of the floor. You look at Cleveland, it's a team that has had its defense really rebound in terms of where it was to start the year. It was at 20th in the league at some point in the year. Now it's all the way back up to 8th. Mobley is at the center of that. That is, to me, one of the 2 or 3 best defenders in basketball. Either one of them are going to be deserving winners. You have like Lou Dort is in that race as well. Dyson Daniels was up there earlier this year. He's not really in the betting markets as a guy, but like you look at a final 3 of Dort, Mobley, Jackson, and Mobley as your main 2 front runners. You could not go wrong, I think, with either of them. I would lean Mobley right now. First-time winner, best team in the East. There's a narrative you can go there with Mobley. As far as defensive rankings go, Memphis and Cleveland right next to each other. Memphis is about a little over a point better per 100 possessions on defense right now on the year. Cleveland, the better team with the better net rating. But Mobley and Jackson on top 10 defenses, both high-end defenses, and with the pedigree and all of that. So it's their race now. Wemby being out means that one of these guys is going to get an award. Jackson, if he gets that, it's another case that they have to give him the maximum extension possible that he probably already deserves. I think he does already deserve. And Mobley, if he wins this award, that escalates his contract, gets him more money, means the Cavs will be more expensive, and their ability in the future to get under tax lines and aprons and things becomes a little bit trickier. But, I mean, that's the price you pay for having the absolute best players in the league. So that is number one thing to watch for with the Wemby thing as far as other teams outside of San Antonio. Let's go to All-Star Weekend, because All-Star Weekend sucked, and I think it's done. All-Star Weekend is dead. All-Star Weekend is not a thing that matters anymore. I was sort of glad we didn't end up... I recorded our last episode with Brendan Clean on the Suns. If you haven't checked that out already, please go do. It's great to have Brendan back on the show. He does amazing work covering the Suns. But I was glad that we didn't record after All-Star, because we recorded that podcast on Sunday morning after the Mac McClung dunk contest win. We didn't record after the game. I was glad to wait, because it was nice to sit and think about All-Star Weekend a little bit. It was nice to sit and think about what that weekend was, hear other takes about it, and see the ratings, and it was horrible ratings for the league. There's a Reddit post that's been going around of how little basketball was actually on television, the Mr. Beast thing and ads and a concert and all these things. I just think All-Star Weekend is officially dead. The players don't care. There's no incentive for them to care. There's nothing I think you could dangle in terms of money, in terms of an actual result of the game, in terms of who's there, that is actually going to really move the needle for these guys and make them try hard. Like, I think the tournament format is fine. I think it's cool. I don't particularly think it changes anything about how I feel about All-Star Weekend after it. That was a thing, and granted, I was younger when I loved it, but it's a thing that I grew up loving. It is a thing that felt like a bigger deal, a more fun thing. The All-Star Game used to be something I was excited to watch. This was not, it is my side hustle to talk about the NBA, and has been for a long time. And I just can't justify caring anymore. I think back to being here in Cleveland. It was a pandemic year, so everyone, all the media, all the fans wearing masks and stuff. But it was the NBA 50, and it was this big event. And I remember just being an All-Star Saturday night, and it was just a slog. The All-Star Game itself was cool. LeBron being back, the NBA 50, that was a really cool, worth being there. But I remember just being an All-Star Saturday night as Jalen Green dunks with an NFT around his neck, and I'm like, what is this anymore? I don't understand why I should care about this. It was ridiculous and dumb. The best two ideas I have heard for All-Star Weekend, number one was move it to the end of the season. I think that if you're going to have it, it has money attached to it. This is still a money generating thing, not just for the league, but for all their brand partners. I mean, shoe companies, big corporate partners, like, do events at All-Star Weekend. This is not going to go away. So there's that. So why not move it to the end of the year? Why not move it until maybe put a break in before the finals, like they have for the Super Bowl? Build some anticipation. I think this would, obviously, Pro Bowl, as Chris Ryan put it on The Ringer, the All-Star Game, but I think we're already there. You move it to the end of the year, you just do some fun stuff, you put it in the same spot every year, control costs, still do all these events and activations, get a bunch of stars there, many of whom would probably just be more willing to goof around and be willing to mess around if it's at the end of the year and there's less eyeballs, it's not in the middle of the season. Make the rosters big. Just get a lot of stars there and do a bunch of stuff and go wild with it at the end of the season. It feels more like an end-of-season product now than it does an in-season product. And make no mistake, this is a product. This is a thing the league sells. It is a marketing tool for the league, and it is not working right now. You would be wrong in just cutting yourself off from the most understanding this as deeply as you could if you do not think about this as something the league needs as a product, as a marketing tool. Just is what it is, blatantly what it is, for better or for worse. The second thing that someone pointed out was that why isn't the NBA putting higher value basketball on at this point in the calendar? And I was honestly just really mad I didn't think of this before, because this is post Super Bowl. This is post college football being over. The sports calendar is pre-MLB. There's not a lot going on that captures the broad general audience. There just isn't, because football is gone. You have your biggest op, your biggest challenge, the ratings juggernaut that is the NFL and college football off of your television screens. So why are you putting the thing that least represents what makes the NBA awesome, which is competitive games, insane athletes, great skill, all of the things that make modern basketball and the league right now full of talent, all these stars you have, you're not putting them forward in any real way, in a meaningful way in February. You're putting forth the time when some people might start caring around All-Star Weekend, around this time in February when the Super Bowl is done. You're actively putting out the worst version of yourself in this moment. And that does not make any sense to me now that I've been thinking about this for a week. The NBA should... I think reducing the games is an obvious one. I don't know if I've told this story on the show before, but one of the interviews I've had in my career that I stick with most is talking to Channing Frye, who made the case that 82 games is a test of a player's medal, it's like running a marathon, all of this stuff. I get that. I'm sympathetic to that. And someone in the league, I'm going to weigh their opinion a little bit more because they've lived through that in a way that I just never will, obviously. But 65 games to keep the guys fresher, or at least putting in some bye weeks so you can like have big games this week. Like stack your games stars against stars at this point in the year. Obviously injuries can happen, but like the NBA would be better off if if they put All-Star week at the end of the year and have like this week, you make that your quote unquote rivalry week. But at the beginning of the year, you just, Adam Silver puts his hand, and makes a decision and puts his weight around and says, okay, this week we're getting Celtics at Knicks. We're getting the Cavs versus someone because we think they're going to be good. We're going to do the Lakers versus the Nuggets. We're going to do the Warriors versus the Wolves. Like, you're just going to pick your games with your stars, smash them all together, and make it that a big deal. Be like, this is the best of the best competing against each other with real energy and intensity. Make it that you're this week in the calendar, and you'd be better off than you are right now. They have the money. They've already won. They don't theoretically need to do this, but for the health of the damn game, for the health of the league, that's the kind of thing that makes more sense when guys and the players right now in All-Star Weekend aren't trying, don't really seem to care about like putting their best foot forward in this instance when they know no one's happy with anything. You have to solve for this at this point. It needs an upheaval. It needs a change. I think something drastic is really the only way forward at this point. These little tweaks are not going to do it. So it was up to me. If I was basketball czar and I got one move, if I had one executive order to throw out and change this, All-Star Weekend's going to the end of the year, and I'm making that week just full of star-on-star matchups. Like, give me Cavs at Bucks, give me Celtics and Knicks, give me the Lakers and the War. Give me just put all your stars together, mash them up. Let's go. Make that a big week. I think that is a much, much better option than what we have right now. Other bit of news today, Bobby Portis suspended for 25 games. Look, this isn't a big deal. I'm not going to sit here and say that it's not nothing, because it is something. Bobby Portis missing 25 games, the big chunk of the rest of the year, is a loss for the Milwaukee Bucks. They're in a weird position. Out of the East Best, and I apologize for looking down, I got a literally illegal yellow notepad here as on my notes for the show today. They are in a spot where they are fifth in the East. They are a game behind the Pacers, and a game up on the Pistons. They are 3.5 games up only on the Orlando Magic. So could it get harder for them if they slide without one of their few good role guys who hasn't even been as good since the finals, frankly? And it was a guy that I think they would have been definitely were open to trading. I don't think, even they got Kuzma now, whatever. This is a team that could take a real step back. There's a risk there for them. Absolutely. This is unequivocally something that can make their path harder in the playoffs. If they are the 6th seed, that's worse. If they fall into the play-in by chance and have to get Cleveland or Boston round 1, like, their chances of making a run here are less. But I also think that's the situation they were already in. This is not a Bucks team. Even after, I'm lower on the Kuzma thing than Wes was, than a lot of people seem to be. He hasn't played winning basketball in 3 years. Like, let's see what it actually is going to be. But their path was already going to have to be to punch up and overachieve and get Giannis playing as the best player in the league for a couple months, and Dame just go scorching, and then that's how you can push Cleveland or New York or the Celtics. Like, that was already the path. If you were the 4 seed. If you're the 6th seed or the 7th seed and you have to go through the play-in, it's still the same path. So, yes, could the degree of difficulty get harder? Sure. I think it probably will. Do I think it changes the trajectory of this Bucks team in any meaningful way? I don't. I still think their path is shooting upwards and trying to overperform vis-a-vis having an actual path. Like, they're going to have to perform at the 100th percentile of their capabilities to make a run to the finals this year. That was the case pre the suspension, and that was the case now. When Bobby Portis is going to miss 25 games, will not come back until right before the playoffs. Last 2 things here. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is going to represent himself. I don't think anyone could really tell you what that means until we hear Shea talk about it, or I hear, an insider article about what this means. We haven't, seen that as of yet. I think it's interesting. I think it's notable that Embiid did this, that Jaylen Brown celebrated this on social media. I think this will not be the last time that a very good, very famous player will do this. Now, does SGA also have a benefit, as Embiid seemed to, as Jaylen Brown would if he had free agency right now, of being in a position where he does not necessarily need an advocate? He doesn't need someone to represent and scour the league and do all the work behind the scenes to tell him what's going on and find a good fit for him and all that stuff. Like that unequivocally for SGA is not something he necessarily needs. He could be a free agent tomorrow, and any team with cap space, if he was like, hey, Miami, clear cap space for me, I'm going to be a free agent X summer or whatever his contract is up, he could do it. He's going to get a mammoth $300 million extension offer this summer, and if he's going to get the full thing with whatever he wants in it. He doesn't necessarily need someone with expertise in negotiation on his behalf. But is it notable to me that another star player is taking this into their own hands and doing something unorthodox? I think it absolutely is. This was not the first. This will not be the last. Someone else notable in the next couple of years is going to do this. And to me, if a Baxter Holmes, a Howard Beck, if someone, with the sourcing, Zach Lowe, if when he hopefully comes back, fingers crossed, to writing, if someone with sourcing could tell me the business side of this and tell me, hey, like, this is what this means that more guys are doing this, I want to know. I want to know if it's not just a small sample size. What are the advantages of it? Like, what is the reason guys might be doing this? I want to get in SGA's head and all these guys' heads of why they're representing themselves. I think it's fascinating. For him, again, I don't think it carries a ton of risk. For your, let's say, mid-level, exception-level guys, I think it does carry some risk. I don't think this would be a wise path because it's a whole other job to find guys homes. SJ doesn't need help finding a home. 99% of the players in the league oftentimes need help finding a home and getting the most value for themselves. SJ is not one of those guys, for what it's worth. Lastly, buyout market. We're starting to see this shake out a little bit. Ben Simmons to the Clippers was, I think, the most notable one, but Javonte Green to Cleveland is one that I think is really good business for Cleveland, and I think adds to their really, frankly, impressive deadline. Javonte Graham is not someone I would necessarily expect to play in the playoffs for them. There's a reason he's a buyout guy, and buyout guys normally don't shift title races. That's not what he is going to do. But what he will do is be a big wing defender as depth. He can shoot it a little bit, at least at low volume, somewhere between 35-37% the last couple of years. Just like a really good, versatile, big wing defender that they're getting on the buyout market. Now that they cleared all the spaces at the deadline and did their work. He's 31. He's in his prime. He's 6'5". He's sturdy. Like that is he's apparently nasty if you just hear the scouting reports from folks. This is a guy that I think will give you really good depth. If you needed him in the play, I think you could try him out and use him. And I think particularly if you think about the Boston matchup, this is why he matters. Cleveland just lost to Boston right before the All-Star break. That has been it's a tough matchup for them with the small guards, even with Mobley and Allen. But you went out and got DeAndre Hunter, and now you have Javonte Graham. Sorry, Javonte Graham. I'm saying Javonte Graham. That is my apologies. Brain fart, long work day. Green is someone who, if you're game 3, let's say, and Max Strus isn't shooting well and he's getting cooked, and Jaylen Brown's hot, and you just need someone else on the floor to defend, you have another option here now. You have Javonte Green to go out and defend. He's versatile. He has defended high difficulty matchups before. He gets over screens well. He's solid. He is just like quintessentially solid, unspectacular defender that is very tough, and that is a guy I want as depth. Again, is Green gonna shift a series? He's absolutely not. But is he like on the margins making Cleveland more competitive? Yes. And I think if you say they give up assets, all that stuff, Niang, by all accounts, a wonderful locker room guy in Cleveland. I think they will miss some of that energy. LeVert at least gave you some. And ball handling, it's a lot on Ty Jerome's shoulders now, I think, to step up and be what he's been so far this year and see if that carries. But effectively, the Cavs brought in DeAndre Hunter and they brought in Green. They brought in two big wing defenders, one of whom shoots better at high rebound, one of whom is just like an okay shooter. You have those two guys in now. Niang went out. Niang was a streaky shooter. He provided some of that toughness, but really poor defender who can't rebound. Kind of like a very weird player that does good things but has his limits, would not have played against Boston. Caris LeVert goes out. Not a guy I think you were planning on bringing back next year when his contract expired. Inefficient. Had his numbers really cratered down the last couple months after a very, very hot start when he was reunited with Kenny Atkinson. You upgraded your roster on two spots in terms of your ability to beat the best teams in the league. Yes, do you now need to really bet on Ty Jerome? And yes, is figuring out your cap going forward and all of these things tricky? Yes, but you now have multiple ways here to solve for your biggest need, plus Isaac Okoro coming back from injury and insurance for Dean Wade with Javonte Green as well, in addition to Hunter. Like, you are a better, deeper team now than you were 2 weeks ago. And I think there's no team at the top of the league that did a better job of adding depth and a well-roundedness than the Cleveland Cavaliers. Kobe Allman deserves a ton of praise. Hunter's the big one, but don't sleep on Javonte Green as a really, really nice buyout market addition and one that he could play in the playoffs. Even if he's not shifting a series, he could make a difference on the margins, and that sometimes is enough to get you through against the best teams in the league. Going to end there. Apologies for saying Javonte Graham. It's Javonte Green. I'm Chris Manning. Back after Cavs Knicks on Friday. We'll have a reaction to that game up to you as well, and anything else that happens and string it in the league on Thursday or Friday as the league comes back. Back next week, I believe we're going to have Tony East on from Locked On Pacers to talk about the 10 most interesting guys for the stretch run in the NBA, and Wes back next week as well. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening. Thanks to BetMGM, Homage, and eBay for their partnership. Have a good weekend. Talk to you soon. Enjoy the hoops.